On page 19. Netilat yadayim, the laws of washing your hands. The bold letters. Keshekovea sudato, when you are making your meal, al uga, over cake. You're establishing a meal out of cake. Remember we talked about pata baba kisnin? And we said that there are all kinds of different cakes and things and breads that might not be hamotzi, unless you're actually intending to make them your meal. That's what we're going to talk about now. So in halakha gimel, im balechol, if you're coming to eat, pat haba'a b'kisanin, I'm not going to keep translating that word, but that means all the things that are like bread but are not bread. Kagon ugot, like cakes, v'chayotze b'zein, anything similar to that. Shemevachim alehem, that we bless over them, birkat borei minei mezonot. It's the kind of food that we make the blessing over, that's borei minei mezonot. So you come to eat a piece of cake. The cake is really like bread. It's flour, it's water, it just has more sugar and eggs. Eino tzarich litol yadav, you do not have to wash your hands.
Oh.
Why? You're about to eat a whole meal of this.
Because you
You're
don't
not saying
dip
it
it in
over
salt.
bread.
Yeah, because you're not saying it over bread. You wash your hands over bread that is bread. You don't wash your hands over cookies that become your meal. Because Chazal did not institute netilat yadayim, the washing of the hands. Unless you're coming to eat pat, bread. Unless it's the kind of bread that you would make a blessing of hamotzi over it. You don't even have to wash af yad echad, not even one hand. When you come to eat this pata baba kisanin. That's because there are a number of rabbis that say that you should wash the hand that you're going to be eating with.
Really?
But that's not the halakha. You're eating your cakes and your cookies with your right hand, so maybe you have to wash that one hand. It's like a half netilat to that. And it is not relevant because we don't do that in halakha. So there's no one who I know that washes one hand.
There's no basis in halacha.
It does have base in halakha, but it's not ruled that way in
But
halakha.
it says that the Chazal said you don't wash if it's not bread.
Yeah. because,
So
you know,
if you're good, so why would you wash one hand if you're going to eat cookies?
it's a compromise.
Maybe you'll understand more in the next halakha. Mikol makom, but, in any case, im kovea sudato aleh. Where did he pull this opinion from? Look back on page 17. Let's read Maran on page 17. Ksheyavo lechol pat, when you come to eat bread. See Maran on the top of the page?
Yeah.
Shemevachim alav hamotzi, that you make the blessing of hamotzi on it. He told Yadav, you must wash your hands. Afilo eno yodea lehem shum tuma, even though they're not impure, you just wash your hands anyways. Veivarecha netilat yadayim, and you make the blessing of netilat yadayim. Aval but lepat she'en mevachim alav hamotzi, but on bread that you don't make a hamotzi on, kegon lachmaniot, like these special rolls that dakot that are very thin. They can't be thin rolls. So lachmaniot must not mean rolls like we translate them in modern Hebrew, but rather breads, small bread, meaning flat bread,
Tortilla.
like a tortilla, imagine. O pat haba'a b'kisanin, or this kind of pat haba'a b'kisanin. Veino kovea sudato alehem, and you don't intend to make them your meal. En tzarich netilat yadayim, you don't have to wash your hands.
Tortilla, you do have to wash and get what you
That is,
I'm not here to talk about tortillas, so we have to define what are those thin breads.
Well, last time you said bread that's made with sugar and almonds, walnuts, or anything that like that, but not, I guess not wheat.
So let's go back to page 19. In any case, אם קובע סעודתו עליה, if you are making this your meal, צריך ליטול ידיו קודם אכילתו. You have to wash your hands before you eat. ולדעת רבים מן הפוסקים, and according to many of the פוסקים, אף מברך בשם ומלכות ברכת על נטילת ידיים. You say the birkat, the blessing of על נטילת ידיים, with Hashem's name.
You just said you don't wash your hands if you have a meal of cake, unless it's bread. So this is saying something different.
That's a good question. We're saying two different things. Good.
Two opinions.
We're going to read why we're saying two different things. We'll get clarity together, because I'm just as lost as you are. והרוצה לסמוך על זה רשאי לעשות כן אפילו לכתחילה, and if you want to rely on this opinion, 19. This paragraph. You can do so even ideally, וכדי לצאת ידי ספק טוב, להחמיר שאוכל תחילה כביצה מפת גמורה שמוכרים למוצא מן הארץ. In order to avoid all conflict, eat a little bit of bread that you make a hamotzian according to everybody. ואחר כך יאכל פת הבא בקיסנין, and then you should eat bread that is פת הבא בקיסנין.
That's not really answering the question. That's
Yeah,
just
that's
walking
the chocolate raisin problem.
That is exactly the chocolate raisin problem.
chocolate raisin syndrome.
That's a good name for it. Chocolate raisin syndrome.
That was me and Mario's problem the other day. We had a kind bar, and he goes, "What blessing do I say?" And I was like, "Well, I would say Halima, but that has chocolate on it, dark chocolate on it. So now I don't know because of the chocolate raisin thing that we were talking about the other day."
What chocolate raisin?
Oh, you're-
Chocolate peanut.
Oh,
Yeah, right.
Man, the chocolate raisin syndrome is we don't know what bracha to make on chocolate raisin. So some people tell you eat an apple, drink a cup of water, and then you solve the problem. You don't have to make a bracha on the chocolate covered raisin.
But then,
You think I'm joking? That's what half the people in the world tell you to do.
That's what a solution is.
That is the solution. You see, that's it.
Rabbi, but
Don't make it up.
you said that day though, and this kind of goes with the whole like, well, eat a piece of bread because then it solves the problem. You're not solving the problem because you don't want to eat the piece of bread. So
Oh, and then you're making a worse problem.
yeah.
And now you gotta do that long blessing afterwards. Is that all in vain?
What's the chocolate raisin?
There's a lot of blessings.
For those who don't know the chocolate raisin syndrome,
Oh,
Whoop.
Whoops.
okay.
Did you get that on film?
No.
just me and my reaction, so nobody will ever know what's going on. The chocolate covered raisin syndrome is what bracha do you make on a raisin that is blessing is borei pri ha'etz.
Yes.
That's covered in chocolate. That according to many poskim, the blessing on chocolate is shakol and yavdol. So which blessing do you make? Do you make a ha'etz or do you make a shakol?
I guess because raisin is the main thing.
But would I eat this raisin if it wasn't for the chocolate?
Hopefully, yes.
Not all of us are you, Marlene.
I'm not usually in a raisin mood, but I'm in the chocolate.
Chocolate.
So you could just eat plain chocolate.
So if the
But
chocolate
you-
doesn't have anything in it, but it's just the cacao bean, then why isn't it?
I once gave a class about this, about why chocolate is not borei pri ha'etz. In fact, there are many arguments to say that chocolate is ha'etz.
Chocolate?
Yeah,
Because it
but
comes from
it's
the plant,
Chocolate.
cocoa.
a
But coffee also comes from a
It's a
plant.
seed.
But you're making it liquid. Oh,
Oh,
but
yeah.
you say hi, it's on certain juices though.
Oh, that's right. Oh, this is too complicated.
Hey guys, we gotta get a new book.
Next halakha.
I'm telling you, chocolate covered
First
raisin
eat a
is
tree,
great.
and then eat some dirt, and then you won't have to make a bracha on there. So what some people say, the way to solve that problem is, say, borei pri ha'etz on an apple.
Yeah.
Say, shakol yabdo on a glass of water. And then you can eat your chocolate raisin because you already said those blessings.
But you're in a store and all you do is you buy a box of chocolate raisin. You don't have the other stuff. Don't you have to figure out what's the main
Oh,
thing
so
that
that's
you're
the
eating?
chocolate raisin syndrome, is that you don't want to deal with the problem, so you avoid the problem.
Oh, gotcha.
And
It's
that's the
percent-
separation from this world that we're talking about. Like, just don't eat it. Don't buy it. Don't
Just
eat
say no.
Yeah, it separates you from this world.
And this is becoming a problem. So let's read footnote Dalit on the left side of that page, left column. I did not study this footnote previously,
Okay,
so we'll study it together.
okay, good.
Cool.
Bear with me. הנה מרן הבית יוסף, מרן, in the Bet Yosef, כתב מתחילה, he originally wrote, להסתפק בדעת הרמב"ם. Here he wrote in the opinion of the Rambam, שכתב, who wrote, שנטילת ידיים תלויה בפת שמברכים עליו המוציא. It doesn't make a difference if you get all the Hebrew here. I'm going to be explaining. It's the logic here that matters. He writes that washing your hands is dependent on what bracha you make on that bread. אם הקובע סודו על פת הבא בכיסנין, חייב ליטול ידיו, we spoke on matzah. During Pesach, matzah is going to be hamutzi. The rest of the year, it's going to be mizanot. Let's go according to that opinion, okay? So maybe you never wash your hands on this kind of bread, because maybe it says the Rambam, you only say hamutzi on bread that is always hamutzi.
Right.
How can you make one day hamutzi? So one day you're going to wash for a tortilla, and tomorrow you're not going to wash for a tortilla. Make up your mind. What do you do with it?
But tortilla doesn't take the...
I am not talking about tortillas. I'm
No.
talking about washing. I'm not telling you what the bracha tortilla is. I give an example. It doesn't even have to be a good example.
But matzah is different than any other bread. I mean, it's a very important symbolic.
A tortilla is a matzah. What's in a tortilla?
Flour and water and
Flour,
And
water,
lime. And yeast.
lime juice.
no yeast.
Yeah,
yeast.
tortillas yeast.
No, they
Tortillas
don't.
don't have yeast.
Not in the kind of tortillas my mom makes.
I would suggest you read the ingredients of a tortilla. There's
We
a
put
little
yeast in our
but
tortillas.
anyways, it's okay.
Jack, imagine you and I got in an argument about how to make a filter fish.
I'm making good.
But she says also...
Imagine we got in that argument.
You put yeast in
It would be wise for me at a certain point not to argue with you anymore.
To like make them bigger, right?
I
Like-
don't argue. I just tell the truth.
And that's why we love him.
If you want to make your tortillas puffy, yeah, put yeast in it. But if
We
you're
put
just
Your
like
mom, what did she put in her tortillas?
baking powder.
In the
Mix
tortillas?
them.
A little bit, yeah. Not a lot though.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah.
Baking soda or baking? No,
Mine was
baking
like,
powder.
forget it, we're never buying tortillas there again.
Yeah.
Well, you mess with our tortillas? It's like the Arab guy. Once they asked him why his hummus is so smooth, he said he puts in a spoon of mayonnaise. He puts mayonnaise in hummus.
Wait, is it yeast? It is yeast,
Makes it
right?
nice and creamy though.
What is it called?
You never know.
yeah,
So?
my family doesn't, or my grandma never.
It
put
just
yeast.
depends on tortillas. One doesn't, the other one doesn't.
Okay, maybe tortillas are a bad example.
Yeah.
Okay,
Really on the back.
Really quick, Rabbi.
The man
I thought it can
wafers.
be. I thought like remember we talked about how you say chamotzi on challah, but if they have eggs in it, it's not considered.
try closing that door, maybe.
It can't be chamotzi.
Yeah.
I thought you said because there's egg in it.
Well, that's exactly what we're talking about.
Okay.
It's a bread that is fluctuating in its status between hamotzi and mizunot.
And I'm sorry, I guess I can't even kind of like. What are we talking about? Not same as on cake.
Right now you're watching.
Okay.
Whether or not we wash our hands before this.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
שקשה בעיניו הדבר, it's hard for him to imagine שהלחם אחד בעצמו פעם יצטרך נטילת ידיים ופעם לא יצטרך. Then on the same bread, sometimes he'll wash on it and sometimes he won't wash for it. ושאפשר שלא מקרי פת שמברכים עליו המוציא, it could be that nothing is considered bread that you say המוציא, אלא פת שמברכים עליו לעולם המוציא, unless you always make the same bracha on that bread, המוציא. ואפילו אינו קובע סעודתו עליו, and even if it's the kind of bread that you make a hamotzi when you don't make it your meal, for example, like real bread, no matter how much of it you eat, it's still a hamotzi, correct?
Yeah.
So maybe that's the only kind of bread that you need to wash your hands for. Meaning, is it that if you eat enough, I'm going to say tortilla, don't walk away with the halakha from this. Tortillas are mizonot. But if I'm going to make it into my lunch, I make a hamotzi. So now that I make a hamotzi, do I also have to wash my hands? Says Maran, I'm not sure. The Rambam is having a hard time, perhaps. How could one day you wash your hands, and the other day you don't wash your hands? Perhaps you only wash your hands for bread, not just when you make a hamotzi, but when it's the kind of blessing, the kind of bread that you always say hamotzi about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah? Have I noticed that my English is getting worse the more I learn Torah? So, hamotzi about it, you would never say hamotzi about anything. You would say hamotzi over something or on something. Just forgive me, I gave up trying. ובסוף דבריו, at the end of his words, דייק הבית יוסף בדברי הרשב"א בתורת הבית הקצר. The Bet Yosef, Maran, he tries to interpret from the words of the Rashba, דמשמע שאם קובע סעודתו עליהם צריך ליטול ידיו. That the Rashba seems to say that as long as this is part of your meal, and therefore you're saying a hamutzi on this bread, it doesn't make a difference if some days you don't make a hamutzi, but so long as today you're making a hamutzi, this is your meal, you have to wash your hands also. Meaning it changes, it fluctuates based on the day.
So if you said the hamotzi on a tortilla that morning, you'd have to, and if you had another tortilla, but it's not necessarily your main meal, but you already said it on.
On one you would wash? No. That don't take me
okay,
there.
okay.
Don't take me there. We don't even know that answer yet.
You should switch to crepes or something, or
Crepes could be crepes would be a nice example, because on their own they could be a mizonot. But if you're going out in Israel, they have a place called Wafel Bar. It's a waffle bar.
Okay.
All they serve is waffles. If you want in a few days to triple your weight and get 3 arteries clogged, this is the place to go.
Wow.
And all they serve is waffles. Legit, it's the only thing they serve: waffles, ice cream, waffles, and maple syrup, waffles, and chocolate, waffles, and vanilla, waffles, and marshmallows, waffles, and butter, waffles, anything with waffles. 3-layer waffles with chocolate cream in between. Anything with waffles.
Eli, a heart attack.
Now, this waffle bar, people go there for dinner.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, don't think it's not just for breakfast. I don't even know if they're open in the morning. And it's very expensive. It's like going to a regular upper class kind of restaurant. Now, normally waffles should be a borei minei mizonot, but it could be this person's eating so many waffles, and this is their dinner, that now the waffles, like the crepe, because the crepe is better than a waffle for a few reasons. The crepe is thin. This crepe is now changing its blessing from borei minei mizonot to hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Now that it's become my meal, and I say hamotzi over it, do I also need to wash my hands? That is the question. Or because this is not real bread, I'm only saying hamotzi because in this particular instance I'm turning it into my meal, so therefore the rabbis did not obligate us in washing our hands for that. Because how could you say a mizonot in the morning and in the evening you have to wash and say hamotzi, and how could it be the same bread? It has 2 different blessings.
How can you say hamotzi if you don't wash before?
That's what they're.
What does that have to do with each other?
Because they go together.
No. Why do we wash for bread? Because we have to eat bread like the Kohanim ate their bread in holiness and purity. This is a crepe. It's not bread. The Kohanim weren't having a waffle bar up in the Temple Mount. So it could be that the whole mitzvah of washing your hands, I mean, this would be that case of where you say hamotzi and you don't wash your hands.
Why would you say hamotzi or something just because of the quantity? Either it is or it isn't.
We spent a whole month about this before
I know,
the holiday. Because now it's become your meal, and it's technically the same ingredients as any other bread. So what makes bread different than a cookie or a cake? Because most people don't eat a dinner of cake. But if you were to eat a dinner of cake, it could be that becomes bread for you.
And you have to say birkat hamazon after.
Correct. So the question here is, do you wash on such bread or not? Just because it's hamotzi, does it now also get extra mitzvah of washing or not? So Maran wasn't sure what the Rambam holds. But from the Rashba, he says, for sure the Rashba says that you wash your hands in such bread. Yes? Let's keep going. ולפי מה שכתב בבית יוסף, לדייק מדברי הרשב"א, כן יש לדייק גם מדברי אורחות חיים והמאירי. You can also find the same thing in the אורחות חיים and the מאירי that you wash over such bread. ובאמת שהרשב"א משמרת הבית on top of page 20, the Rashba writes that if you make your meal over such foods, the right column, ודאי נוטל שתי ידיו ומברך עליו המוציא ושלוש ברכות. So for certainly you must wash your hands and say המוציא and then say the grace after meals afterwards. Because this now became your meal. וכן הוכח מדברי הרעה. The רעה says the same thing. שכל שקובע סעודתו חייב ליטול ידיו. Because so long as it now becomes your meal, you also have to wash your hands. וכן הביא אורחות חיים, and אורחות חיים says the same thing, בשם רבי דוד בן לוי, in the name of רבי דוד בן לוי, שאם קובע סעודתו עליהם, חייב ליטול ידיו וחמוצים. That if you make this your meal, you have to not just say hamotzim, but also wash your hands. Now this is classic Rabbi Yosef family style. It's not enough to bring you one source that said the same thing. They're now going to make you go crazy until you see all the sources that say the same thing. Why? In the unlikely event that you can disprove one of them, they still have 20 more on you. That's how they work. This is the style. Some argue that it was Rabbi Yosef who invented the style. Because we didn't used to play numbers game. It used to be a logic game. And he transformed it to, I'm going to throw numbers at you. How could you argue with everybody else? And then what you have is something interesting. Rabbi Yosef has books in his library that nobody else in the world owns. So he'll quote you 15 books that you can't even check. Or you don't even know what they say. I mean, even if you found 100 rabbis, he'll find you 115 rabbis. He'll always one-up you. That's how he works. This is his style.
You said when he died, yeah, but 14,000,
40,000 books.
40,000.
In his personal library. Not in his yeshiva, in his personal library.
Amazing.
Books that he knew by heart. Not books that he just owned. Chaim Vadel was notorious for reading a book once and not having to open it up again.
Oh.
His yahrzeit is today.
Today?
Or yesterday. Rabbi Yosef's yahrzeit. 4 years. 4 years that has left the Sephardic world in a mess. And 4 years that I don't think there's anyone in the world who has replaced them. Nobody who knew as much as he did, and who was so fearless in his psak halacha. He wasn't afraid of anybody. Who cares what you think? I'm going to say what I say anyways. In fact, Rabbi Buskila, he just posted an article on Facebook about his personal experience with Rabbi Yosef. When they came to Israel, they were there for like 3 days, and his father wanted him every night he should go see Rabbi Yosef. So 2 nights his father took him, and the 3rd night his father wasn't able to take him, so he asked his mother to take him. Now, he was maybe 11-year-old boy. And at that time, Rabbi Yosef classes were in a synagogue, so he knew who was coming to the classes. And his mother walked him to the Beit Knesset, and she realized there was, of course, that night of the week, there was no women's section open. There was such a big group of men that there was no room for a woman, so it was like that one night they didn't have women come to the class. And so she was embarrassed to go inside. He was embarrassed to go with his mother. So Rabbi Yosef comes, and he sees them, and he waves at them, and then he goes inside, and a few minutes later, Rabbi Yosef comes out to look for them. Why didn't you guys come inside yet? He said, because we're embarrassed, because says, your mom could come also. And he said his mom her hair was uncovered, she was wearing pants, and Rabbi Yosef walked her up to the front row, made room for her in the front row, they should sit together, and he gave her a blessing. How praiseworthy are you mothers who bring your children to come study Torah? You don't have rabbis like this anymore.
Yeah.
They don't exist. It's by choice they don't exist, but they don't exist. Am Yisrael made a choice. They are afraid of rabbis that are real like that. Chaim Yosef is a famous question about him. You should know that his own family, they're terrified of the story. But the story is told so many different places in the same way that it's almost impossible the story isn't true. Rabbi Yosef was much younger. He would sit in a Beit Knesset. There was only synagogue that would let him in. And people knew there was a young Torah scholar here who was able to be posek halachot. And she lived in the neighborhood of Rav Shapira, a blessed memory. And she came in crying. You have to understand. She made a pot of rice, and she made it in the wrong pot. Maybe it wasn't kosher, whatever the story was. And she went to Rav Shapira to ask, and he looked at her and he said, "I'm sorry, but you have to throw away this pot of rice." She came, literally, he hears her right outside of the Beit Knesset crying. Now today, you and I, most of us, if a pot of rice was, I just throw in how much is a pot of rice worth? 30 cents? How much you pay for a pot of rice? But for her, this was her children, her family's food. I mean, this was a time where Israel didn't have. And Rabbi Yonatan hears what's going on and says, what's happening? So she's telling him, my pot of rice. I said, what happened to your pot of rice? So she's telling the story. She says, according to halakha, your pot of rice is okay. You can eat it. So what do you mean? I just went to Rav Shapira. And Rav Shapira told me the pot of rice was not kosher. And he tells her, and she said, once he said it's not kosher, I'm not willing to eat it. And he said, you have blonde hair. And when you came to him, he must have thought that you were Ashkenazi. But really you're not. I know you from the neighborhood, you're Sephardi. And according to Sephardim, this pot of rice is okay. According to Ashkenazim, it's not. Therefore, you can go home and be assured this pot of rice is okay. And she said, I can't, I don't know. Are you sure that it's kosher? He said, would you mind if I have some? And he took a spoon from her, and he took a spoon. He made a boim namzonot. He ate the rice and said, don't. And once she saw him eat it, she went home and she was happy. But this story makes people upset. He noticed her hair color. He ate from a pot that she was holding. All kinds of terribly improper things he was doing. I'm joking. I'm being sarcastic.
No.
But in today's world, that's not the way that a gadol, a great rabbi, is supposed to look like. But that was what made him great. Chacham said that was his greatness. He wasn't afraid. Simply was not afraid.
He saved her from despair.
Exactly. But that's what a posek is job. That's his job. That's what he's supposed to do.
But
Yes.
his job is also to say that if you go to a rabbi and you get an opinion, you're not supposed to go to another person and get an opinion.
So what did he ask her?
Well, the way
He asked her who
framed
she
it-
went to.
The way you framed it, it sounds okay because
He says that if he would have known that you were Sephardic, Rav Shapira would tell you the same.
yes, right.
Meaning he ruled for you thinking you were in a certain situation, but you weren't. So it's not that he was going against the psak. He's saying if he was here now,
Yeah.
he would agree with me. When I sat with Chaim Yosef once in my life, a person who literally didn't live in this world, literally was we came into the room, myself, a rabbanit, another man, and 25 18-year-old girls. Trust me, they're not quiet. And he didn't even notice that we came into the room. He was learning. After a few minutes, they went to go interrupt him and tell him, oh, the school came. And, oh, good to see you. And he came and spoke with us. He had no idea. But we were all here. Imagine he was sitting in the kitchen, but there was no wall. He just didn't hear. When Benjamin Netanyahu would come ask him questions, as the prime minister, he wouldn't realize he came into the room. And they would say, oh, that's interrupting. He said, no. What he's doing is more important than what I came here to talk about. Just let him finish. So you might be the person we don't have another. I mean, you know myself and certain disagreements that our Beit Midrash has with the Beit Midrash of everybody else, but so what? You cannot deny the greatness of a person who literally lit up the world with his Torah. And not just the own Torah world, he lit up literally the world. The rest of the world. Everybody else was part of his community. Perhaps one of the last Sephardic rabbis that was ever a Sephardic rabbi. You lived in his generation. Study his Torah. That's what we're doing now. This is his style. He's now going to bring you a list of people that literally say the same thing over and over again. Because Rabbi Yosef, the way he writes his letters, he knew that every time he wrote a letter, people would try to disprove him. So he just wrote his letters answering all the questions you would ever bother asking him. Hama Peretz writes a letter. Rav Moshe Feinstein is a style of writing a letter. He writes what he says, maybe one proof text, and says, this is the halakha. You argue with him? He says, okay, argue with me. I don't have time to debate with you. Rabbi Yonatan Yosef, his style was the exact opposite. I will not leave room for you to even debate. In fact, I'll quote books that you've never heard of before, so you'll not even have the audacity to argue. And people still had the audacity. But this is how he worked. This is what he's doing right now. Daran writes the same thing in his commentary Chulin. Da'akol talui b'achila. This is the first wide line at the end of the line. Da'akol talui b'achila derech kviut. It's all dependent on how you eat this meal. וכל שקובע סודו על פת הבא בכיסנין, כיוון מברך עליה המוציא, על מה פת גמור הוא. Once you see the person making hamotzi because he's turning the cake into his meal, then you see that it becomes bread. ונוטל שתי ידיו, and he has to wash his hands. ועיין שם, look there for the source. וכן כתב בחידושי הרשב"ץ. The Rashbats, he writes the same thing. ועיין בהלכות גדולות, and look also in the book הלכות גדולות שכתב that he writes, שהאוכל מחמשת המינים. Anybody who eats from the 5 grains, כגון חיטין, וסורין, וכוסמין. These are all different grains. Barley, rye, spelt. Maybe barley, wheat. כד אבידי במעשה גדרה, אף אגב טיעונים ברכה לכן, לא בא נטילת ידיים. Let's skip to where it says Ayin Kaf. Umashma, you see from his writings, Shekol shekoveh sudato al pat haba b'kisanin, tzarich netilat yadayim. That so long as you said, the first word in line is pat, or by the period in that line. That so long as you turn this into your meal, you wash your hands. וכן מתבאר מדברי מרן בשולחן ערוך כאן, and you could read this into the writing of Maran here in the Shulchan Aruch, שהכל תלוי בקביעות סעודה. That it depends. Maran says you don't wash your hands in a case where you're eating this bread not for your meal. What do you infer from there? That if you are eating this bread for your meal, as your meal, what do?
Wash.
You wash. That's what you seem to be able to infer from Maran. ואף על פי שבבית יוסף נסתפק בזה. Even though in his earlier book, the Beit Yosef, he's not sure about this as a halakha. He says he's not sure. How could one bread be one day you wash your hands and the next day you don't wash your hands? מכל מקום, מסיום דבריו הנ"ל נראה דבתר איבא אלי הדר פשטם דברי רשב"א. It seems like he ruled at the end, because the Shulchan Aruch was written after his Beit Yosef. It's his final text. And so what he ruled here, or even if he didn't rule it, but what he infers here, what he implies here, is that he follows the Rashbah. Shekol shekoveh sudato al pat b'kisanin chavtat yadayim, that as long as it becomes your meal, you wash your hands. U'machamat ken, and because of that, katav b'Shulchan Aruch, he writes in the Shulchan Aruch, דבאוכל פת בקיסונים ואינו כובש אותו עליהם, אין צריך לתת ידיים, דמשמע דאם קובע אותו עליהם, צריך לתת ידיים. So you see the Maran holds that if you do make the cake your meal, or the crepe your meal, then you have to wash your hands because you make a hamotzian.
But that's before you eat.
Before you eat, yes. The next question we're going to deal with tomorrow, because my time has run out, is now that you know that you should wash your hands, do you make a bracha on that hand washing? Because Maran doesn't say that.
You don't assume that.
Now it's especially problematic because whenever you're in doubt as to whether or not you make a blessing, what do?
Not say.
Don't say it. Now we have to. Okay, so now let's pretend that we agree that you have to wash your hands when you eat this cake. But now do you make a blessing on that hand washing or not? You might say yes because it's like any other bread that now you wash your hands for.
Yeah.
Some might say no. It's not like any other bread. We barely agree that you should wash your hands. Now you can tell me you also want to make a blessing? Washing your hands is one thing. You want to break the 10 Commandments? It's another thing. But even if there are rabbis that say you make a blessing, but there are rabbis that say you don't. So what do?
One thing is you can make it mizanot and not say, just say.
Not make it in your meal.
Not say any blessing.
But that, right, I mean that's also a healthy recommendation, is not to make your cake your dinner. But clearly there's a person who's having this problem.
But cake is generic. I mean, you're not really talking.
I'm not really talking about cake, you're right.
Taking about bread.
How are you going to turn your $60 waffle not into your dinner? At the end of the meal you're broke, you can't even buy a piece of chicken if you want.
Okay.
Or let's say you go to a place and it's a crepe bar. I mean, that's what they do. It's a bar mitzvah, and that's all they're serving.
Yeah.
So that's probably your meal.
Yeah.
I mean, there are situations where I don't know you can avoid this. I mean, how much is? He said it's eating a certain amount. So even if you don't intend for this to be your meal, you're going to eat afterwards. Once you pass that amount, then you're in trouble. Want to complicate things more? I have a brother-in-law who says that maybe donuts are hamotzi, maybe they're mizonot. And okay, you have to eat a certain amount of donut in order to make it a meal. But how do you measure the donut? It has air bubbles in it.
Oh.
So do you go by volume? Do you go by weight? Do you go by... She takes the strictest opinion. Turns out that he doesn't even eat donuts. Unless it's in the middle of a meal. But then in the middle of the meal it's a problem, because what if it really is mizonot? And now it counts as your dessert. So anyways you'd have to make a blessing on it. The hamotzi didn't help.
You could eat the whole.
That's exactly what he does. So again, that's called being crippled by the halakha.
Yeah.
But tomorrow we're going to discuss this question,
Gotta dig.
which is a real question, of do we make a bracha? Now, what if you could prove that Maran says you make a bracha? So for Sfaradim, that should work. At least for us, we should be able to make a bracha. But remember, the Sfaradim have this problem where even if Maran says to make a blessing, if two people argue with him, they won't make that blessing. So even if you could prove that Maran would say to make a blessing, the Sephardic halachic process will not allow you to make that blessing. Because once two people argue with Maran, it now becomes a doubt. And now it's a doubt. You can't make a blessing in vain. It's complicated. Tomorrow, B'ezras Hashem. Have a good night.